Today's video is all about grass. Do you have an unlimited internet plan? Rent what you don't use. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what, let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins looking for opportunity. And the question is grass an opportunity? Guys, today we're going to be doing a deep dive, looking into this project, looking at some of the details, and of course, as per usual, looking at it from a retail investor perspective. Does the team, does the website, does the overall documentation that is provided by the team give us all the details that we need to get fundamentally bullish? And ultimately, this is what we're kind of speculating, because as we see the market's doing really well, and we're trying to fill our portfolios with strong projects. And the only way really to feel that confidence across the market is to do some research. And this is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at some of the details here. Let's begin. We're going to be looking at the website as our main platform to kind of like navigate the project. And as I mentioned, we're going to be trying to take a retail perspective. So you're coming in, you don't know much about crypto, you're trying to gather information if you think this project is good or not good, if you should be holding some tokens or not. The only way to do it is kind of scrape through the material. So that's what we're going to do. The website is quite nice. I like the way it's laid out. I like the colors, the schematic. I like the simplicity. Unlimited internet plan. Rent what you don't use. That statement right there is a very thorough statement in the sense that that's its major core, let's say, value proposition per se. Okay, so basically you have internet, you play unlimited internet, and if you have, if you're willing or interested, you could definitely rent out what you don't use. Now, of course, this is, a little bit of a gray area. If you do have unlimited internet, doesn't mean that you could totally exploit the unlimitedness of your plan or your package or your agreement with your internet service provider. Guys, I'm not here to debate that gray area. All I'm saying is grass is saying if you are privileged to have unlimited internet plan, that you've sign a contract with your provider, and you feel like it's a viable opportunity to rent out the rest of the unlimitedness that you may have, guys, they're willing to offer you tokens in rewards. That's the reality. That's basically what it is. Now, there's a little bit more detail that we need to get in here because there's much more to this that is not really clearly defined, especially as you scrape through the website. Okay, so we're going to try our best here to navigate all of the details. Don't let the leftover internet go to waste. Earn rewards by sharing what you don't use. Now, I think that the unlimitedness of your internet package is not meant to be intended to be thought of like that. You use what you can use, and if you don't use it, it doesn't belong to you. The remainder, that's a mindset that many may share, and of course your internet service providers will share the same sentiment. It's like going on all you can eat buffet and not be eating what you can, and then obviously taking some to go. That's not you, and selling it on on top of it. So that's not usually how it works. But then again, guys, I don't know, you guys have to do your own due diligence and figure out whether you think this is valid. And for me, it does, present itself in a gray area. Okay, so let's continue here. We do see a very nice defined website. It gives you an indication of what the dashboard looks like, and we'll take a look at the dashboard in a little bit of detail. I suggest that if you want to know more, that you sign up and you go check out the dashboard yourself, because there's a lot of little details that might be custom to you that you can navigate, and it's an easy dashboard to kind of get through. So I'll have links in the description if you're interested in of signing up for grass and taking a look at what they have to offer. What is grass and how does it work? So basically, like I mentioned, the internet is global. You live somewhere where you have access to unlimited internet, and you obviously don't use it all, obviously, because it's unlimited. quote unquote unlimited, and then that way, when you're not using, or even if when you are using the internet, Grass, its terminal or its website or its app, because you can use it as an extension on your browser or as an app that you download to your PC. Now, either way, Grass takes a small amount of data, the small amount of bandwidth, that's a better term, bandwidth, in order to achieve what it needs to achieve. That small amount is used within the Grass network in order to, let's put it this way, gather information. Now, the information that is gathered is not your personal information. This is something that I think that the documentation should, especially right on the main website. Now, I did find some other documentation to define exactly what this means. Share your internet, your bandwidth, and what does the bandwidth, get used for. And I'll show you what I found. And of course, it's official documentation by the Grass team and so on. But I think what we should do is leave that for a second and just keep on going, because really, it doesn't really get into that. If you read this, it doesn't really get into the details of where does your data go and how is it going to be used. Okay, so super important, and I would expect that it would have been here, but it's not. Protected personal data, I think this is also a valid concern by many, right? Because if you're going to be installing an extension to your browser or running an application on your computer, technically speaking, it is, tapping into your bandwidth. It's tapping into your internet connection. And based on that, most of us will quickly come to the conclusion that there is some possible vulnerability. And no matter what, even if the team promises 99% protected of your personal data or whatever the case may be, there always is a certain degree of possibility of vulnerability. This is the way the internet works, guys. We know that many institutions, including Visa, get exploited all the time. And this is possible. There's always a degree of possibility. So although they're doing all their due diligence, multiple contract audits. They have connections with many antivirus companies, trying to make sure that they have all their bases covered. And I did look through all of it, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as I go through some of the pages. But I think that they've done their due diligence to make sure that all the users of Grass are safe. However, guys, nothing is certain in this, especially concerning innovative, speculative technologies, and particular in this crypto space, nothing is for certain. Okay, so we always have to have that, slight, understanding that, anything's possible. Okay, so the philosophy is to protect your device from unwanted usage. And I believe that they, are doing their best to make that happen. Okay, so again, more detail, more research needs to be done. Fine, go check it out. They got great links there. And basically, if they're going to expect people to contribute their bandwidth and their bandwidth only, they have to give us a little bit of, what are their safety protocols in order to make sure that happens and that there's no issues. And one of them is that they're, recognized as safe to use by all of the leading antivirus providers. Again, more detail is in these links. As we keep on going, you can see boost your rewards with our referral program. They have options to help you get involved and spread the word about Grass. What does your users say? Users are saying great things, of course, as expected. You're not going to see negative things here. All positive. It's easy to sign up. This is one of 3 steps. Create an account, download the app, desktop app, or some extension of some sort, and then you start earning. It's fairly simple, very easy, and of course, they want that to be frictionless. Scenario for retail investors or retail contributors or users of the platform. Okay, so good stuff. Browse our latest news. They got a blog with lots of good stuff. What is Grass? If you want to know more, of course, they got some info there. Grass 101. Reclaim your internet, but privacy and security. I'm glad that they've put an article out there that specializes in offering this information. Because ultimately, I believe that a lot of people out there, particularly us that were here in this space, we do not want to give up any ounce of privacy or security, even if it is 1%, because it's too much, it's too risky. So how do we navigate this? Is get informed, read, learn more, go see what they're doing. They have a zero knowledge proof. They got, tons of people involved, like I mentioned before, or they mentioned before. They have, security companies basically coming in and giving them, a thumbs up that they're doing everything correct, which is great, obviously. But again, more research, guys, gives you that certainty and that sense of security, of course. But do a bit of research. Lots of good questions being answered here, which is great. Great. What is grass? What does grass? How does grass work? You share your internet, grass points. So basically, when you share your internet, you earn points. And these points eventually reward you via airdrop. And this is where we are in the phase for grass at the current moment. Depending on your geographic location, there are some limitations and restrictions. Your contributions to the grass network are tracked through awarding of grass points, which are shown on your account through the grass dashboard. And then these points are used as a factor to determine the number of grass tokens that you're eligible to receive, the way your bandwidth is used, and your location are also factors that are used to determine the number of grass tokens that you are eligible to receive. So these are, obviously good things, but when do you actually get the grass tokens? And it varies. Like right now, North America pretty much is waiting for their airdrop, and they're patiently waiting. They've been probably using, grass and sharing their internet for a good while, and they're waiting for their airdrop, and it's going to happen soon. We don't know when, but it should happen soon. What are the grass tokens? Again, bandwidth. You share your bandwidth. You get some tokens, in exchange for the points that you receive. Reflects your participation and so on. And that's pretty much it. When the grass tokens will be awarded. See, so right here you can see that they had their first airdrop in October 28, 2024, and there was a bunch, tokens were airdrop for many users. Users were eligible to receive grass tokens, so on. But you can see, statistics accurate as of December 6th, 2024. So it's been out since then. TGE is right around 2024. I think in it's October, right around here, and this is where the initial airdrop landed. But some tokens are currently being released or waiting to be released to Canada and the United States, and I did see that here somewhere on the website. So where is it? Right here. For users in the United States and Canada, Grass Foundation will make payouts available soon. So they're still holding tight for their payouts. Is it a good look? Probably not. I don't know the details behind it because obviously I did not participate in the Grass token and, mining and all of this. But ultimately, I'm wondering and I'm curious how Americans and Canadians feel about, contributing to the network and then not receiving their tokens just yet. So I'm not sure exactly how that's playing out, but that's some of the info. Join Grass Unlimited Intern Plan. Okay, start now, open the dashboard, and that concludes the website. Fairly straightforward. But what I mentioned earlier on, they do not really talk about what your data is going to be used for per se, specifically. Like, I want to know, I know it doesn't really matter because ultimately what they're doing is using their internet and reusing your bandwidth in such a way that it has nothing to do with you as an individual. Right? So it's not like they're using your personal data or your own information. They're just using your bandwidth, relaying your bandwidth. But what are they using the bandwidth for? I'm curious, obviously, because that, from an investor perspective, not just for a contributor of the bandwidth, I mean of holding the Grass token, to come full circle, I want to know what Grass is doing in the background with this bandwidth. Right? Because that's a value proposition from an investor perspective that if I like what they're doing with the bandwidth, it might be very interesting to me. Okay, so as you can see, the website doesn't really give you much with regards to what is Grass doing with the bandwidth. Okay, so let's move on. Reclaim your internet. Okay, so this is the privacy and security page. So we start, looking into some of the details because I felt like this was, a significant portion of the doubt or the uncertainty that Grass may have, particularly from individuals that belong to the crypto space. Like, personally speaking, I would not want any type of software, leaking any of my bandwidth from my computer. And we know why. I don't need to spell it out, right? Even if it is a 1% chance, because there's always a degree of, you never know. Even if it is a 1% chance that it could be that I leave my computer vulnerable, 1% is too high. So we really have to understand that what is really going on here is we need to be really informed with regards to the security. And I think that, releasing this page right here is quite useful. Now, I'm not here trying to convince you that it is secure. That is something that you're going to have to do and check the points off to see if it's valid and if it meets your standards. But you can see the hidden value from unused internet. They explain their value proposition, Grass commitment to privacy and cybersecurity. Of course, they have that. You can see that the only information, this is what they're saying, the only information that they take is your email, because that's what you need to sign up, your username for Grass itself, your password for Grass, not for your email, but for Grass, and then your IP address. Where things get a little bit hectic here on the IP address side of things, right? So is an IP address is your personal, let's say, gateway to your internet and basically trackable to your internet service provider. So in this case, there's a little bit of, worry, of course, for some of us that know what an IP address is. It's a personal identification of where and what and how and who is behind your internet connection. Okay, so that's a lot of, for me personally, that's a bit of privacy being leaked with your IP address. Now, could you use a VPN and all of this? Is it going to downgrade your commitment to offering the data? Is it going to be not as a good experience for Grass, and then they're going to dock you via your rewards because of it? Who knows? But ultimately, the IP address right now is probably the bigger issue. And also, as I skipped over, you can see they are working with industry leaders like Avast, Microsoft Defender, McAfee, and many other AVG to kind of like make sure that everything is good and we have peace of mind regarding safety and cybersecurity. Again, I'm not trying to convince you guys. Just go and look into it. If it meets your standards, then it's for you. If not, that's the choice you got to make, right? So you can see that there's leading VPNs and so far some sort of security measures here. You can see they talk about more about the security monitoring and so on, compliance and all of that, guys. Again, more details about behind their back end and how they're keeping everything secure. How Grass ensures safety of your data. So they're not really using your data. Okay, Grass internet traffic is completely separate from your personal browsing history. So they're not necessarily tracking your browsing history or what you're doing on your computer. They're basically using your internet as far as bandwidth goes. So this is important. Think of Grass like a friend using your Wi-Fi on their own device. They're connected to your internet, but they can't see anything you're doing. Fine, that's fine. But still, the bandwidth, we don't know. Obviously, there are plenty of engineers that are going to try to find exploits in this whole thing, and I'm not willing to take a chance to find out. So I understand that they're doing their best here to make you feel comfortable, and that's basically what they are doing here with this page, and I appreciate it. Okay, so again, feel free to read, get yourself comfortable here with all of this. I'm not trying to get into too much detail. Will Grass slow down my internet? No. And it's because they use a small amount of your unused internet. The app always takes a backseat to your internet usage. If you're using all your internet yourself, the app simply goes dormant. So it tries to throttle based on your consumption. It uses more if you're using less, and vice versa. And at the current moment, I guess that would be something that you may consider. Like, let's say if you keep your computer on 24 hours a day and you're not using it overnight, this may be something that could generate passive, tokens or passive points, Grass points, in order for you to get a reward. Okay, so this is something obviously concerning for a lot of people. In addition, because the question is it worth it? Like, is it actually worth it to keep your computer on all day long to, basically earn these rewards? How many could I actually earn? Now, I did receive a bit of primary data for some of the community members that were willing to share their experience that are involved in Grass. And I thank them for offering that data, because I haven't really participated in Grass, so I wouldn't know from a first hand. So I did rely on a little bit of that data. And, the data was quite interesting, given the fact that you do earn, but the question is it enough? And this individual is earning approximately, let's say, at the current evaluation of Grass and still waiting for the airdrop itself, maybe about $4 a day. right? Because grass right now is right around $2. But if grass drops to a lower valuation, then obviously it's going to be a little less. It's going to be less. Now, if grass continues going, how is that going to, what is the earning capabilities? Obviously, it's going to fluctuate based on the grass token price. So this is obviously something that needs to be considered. At this point, the economics behind it has to be considered. Electricity, wear and tear of your computer, the annoyance of having to maintain, your computer being up and connected all the time, and are you going to get, basically doxed or not doxed, but like punished if it disconnects and it doesn't, maintain standards. Like usually that happens, guys, when you're contributing to a deep in network, and you're not contributing quality. Sometimes you get hit, and of course it did mention based on your uptime and your reputation and so on. There's a scoring system, as you can be seen, to evaluate the completeness and the consistency and timeliness and availability of the data you helped provide. So there's a scoring system, and that scoring system is directly related as to how much effort are you going to put into keeping your computer on 24 hours, 7 days a week, and so on and so forth. So this is something that needs to be considered, guys. We know that keeping your computer on forever, all day long, is not free. And it's technically not even that cheap because you're putting your computer on, keeping it on. So again, it's all about risk to reward or cost benefit. So do your research, basically analyze this and be critical about it. But at the same time, it could be a good opportunity for some of us. All right, let's move on. That's the security aspect, and I'm glad that they have this info. If we keep on going, this is the dashboard. Let's see if I can log in here real quick. There we go. Just to give you a quick idea of what this is all about. Obviously, I have zero contribution here, none whatsoever. I'm not connected. I just want to show you the dashboard's clean. It tracks your earning statistics, and you can download the desktop app, which gives you double the rewards via instead of using like an extension. If you use the desktop app, you earn double, which is not bad. There's a referral program if you want to refer your friends. There's rewards, there's a store for merch, and so on. It's very simple. I like the interface. There's you can see that, and you can add various devices and so on. So not bad of a platform. It looks pretty good. You can go into light and dark theme, which I prefer, easier on the eyes. But that's about it, guys. Super simple, nice and clean. And then the white papers. Okay, so getting to a little bit more detail. So now that we understand what it is, but do we? See, this is the problem, but do we? So I feel like what we need to do is hold on from the white paper, because there's another piece of information that I think that might be useful. Is it this one? Let me see. Discover grass? No. Okay, this right here. Let me get rid of this again. It's always asking me the same thing. How AI Labs uses the Grass network. Okay, so where does grass actually earn or actually provide value? It's not necessarily a bandwidth thing, right? Because we offer the bandwidth. What do they do with the bandwidth? They collect information, but from who? And this is the thing. They collect information from the internet. They scrape, web activity. And that's important because if you think about it, how does AI work? So you can see they reference ChatGPT to Gemini, Grok, and more AI tools everywhere. They use internet data or internet information for training their language learning models. So the AI labs behind some of the favorite AI tools need billions of data points from across the internet to develop intelligent models that can answer questions, generate content, solve problems, and even more so to communicate effectively. Just for communication, language learning models, just for communication, it also is very helpful. That's where Grass Network comes in by sharing your unused internet bandwidth through the Grass app. You help AI labs access the public web data they need while earning Grass rewards. That sentence is exactly what you are actually providing to Grass in order for Grass to create or generate revenue. That's how they're going. That's their business model. They use the bandwidth to collect data. They collect the data. They get some sort of kickback somehow. Of course, their business models, is theirs. And then after that, there's going to be some rewards even for them, and they pass over the rewards to the contributors of the bandwidth. And not to worry, personal data stays completely private. So curious about how your extra bandwidth is helping AI tools every day. Let's dive in. Obviously, you can read. There's lots of information, which again, I appreciate this, but you can see it's the language learning models learn in their unique AI way. Imagine in your desire for a hearty dinner, you're craving pasta with meatballs, okay, and they give you this context, and then you basically go and ask the models what pasta goes with meatballs, and then and they're basically able to give you that information. And this is what basic AI right now is doing. Language learning models. These language learning models concepts have been around for a bit. So, we're not new to the LLM concept here in the crypto space, and we understand what DePIN is, right? Decentralized infrastructure. And in this case, this is what Grass does. It uses a decentralized infrastructure in order to generate data or collect data for language learning models and create some sort of tokenization reward system based on the contribution of the language of providing that bandwidth that helps improve the language learning models across the AI space. And this is where it ends, right? This is the actual information that you should be very careful, or not careful with, but understanding of, because this is where the value proposition lies. Okay, so I'm not going to get into all of this, but I summarized exactly what it is: the power behind advanced language learning models. And you know what I mean, it uses a lot of different websites and information out there in order to collect information for language learning. And of course, AI labs with data scraping. This is what it does. It uses your data, your bandwidth, to scrape data on the internet. Okay, so that's that. Now, we also know, okay, and of course, this is coming from my first-hand experience, is that when you scrape the internet, it's not necessarily a positive thing. Internet service providers, number one, websites themselves, number two, and a lot of the times, even like your IP, your let's call it your IP, because your IP is scored. Your IP could be considered a residential IP, even a database IP. If it's coming from a data center, your IP address is not high quality as a proxy. And then what happens is that when you try to, log in, if you get basically rated, your IP gets rated as a low quality IP address, then when you start to log into a legit website, it might ban you or say you're a bot or you're a spammer or this or that. So my biggest concern here is that lately, especially as we see more bots entering to the space, we're seeing that IP addresses are slowly becoming ranked based on quality. Right. And the fact that, if your IP address is one of which that is used for scraping, it could be deemed as, something that is bot-like or not high quality. And then you're technically ruining your IP address. Yes, you can get a new one. You can ask your service provider for a new one and all of this kind of stuff. But that's a headache and it's annoying. And I don't know if this is something that we should be concerned with as we go closer and further into seeing more bots entering the public networks of the internet, because there's got to be a way to kind of like distinguish between bot scraping action versus organic human interaction. And this is what's super important to me as a techie myself. I don't want to ruin the status of my IP address, given that my IP address is my personal identification online. Okay, so just to think about, guys, and this is why if you have this experience in the past, when you use a VPN, just think of how many people are using that proxy, and then think about when you start going to a website and it tells you to verify that you're not a bot, or it doesn't allow you to even log in or even visit the site because you're using a VPN. And that's because a lot of people use this VPN in a very, let's say, the abusive way. And then that IP address gets blacklisted or frowned upon, and then the websites don't accept it, and so on. So the quality of an IP address is super important. Could this be something to be concerned with? I don't know, guys. Okay, let's move on. So I definitely want to get back to that white paper, because I just wanted to show you all of this first and talk about this. So this is the foundation. We'll get back to that. Let's go back here, because this is where we start talking about what is Grass. Okay, now Grass as a foundation is one thing. Grass as a tech company is one thing, and then Grass as a token is a wholly different thing as well. So we have different identities, obviously under an umbrella concept, which is grass and a grassing multiple concepts of grass here. And what I want to focus is on more a little bit is the token itself, because as a crypto project, and as of course we're talking about an investment opportunity here, grass in itself as a token should be at the forefront of our research. So getting started, you want to learn, there's a bit of a landing page here to kind of navigate. You guys know I like to get books, very easy to keep things going, and this and so on. Two key components of grass infrastructure: the grass app lets users share unused bandwidth. We talk about that. And then data rollup consists of the network nodes, routers, validators, and ZK processor, and data ledger, which facilitates the data sourcing and transformation processing. And again, a lot of technical. Basic, what they're talking about is the tech stack, the infrastructure behind the front end, which is the app. Okay, so the back end, the front end, back end, they have a lot of tech and a lot of layers to make this DePIN protocol work. And then the front end, which is the app that, basically we interact with as end users. Okay, so that's that. Now, the frequently asked questions is great. Lots of good ones. What is grass? How do you use it? Can you do it on multiple devices? Can we multiple accounts to earn more? Each person can only have one account and devices. Yes, you can. Are there restrictions and limitations to using grass? Age, different limitations. And then what I found most important is this: the last two. This one right here, Wind Labs. Okay, so Wind Labs, you'll notice that you're going to see this Wind Labs identity or company, peppered in to the back end of Grass. Okay, so they define it as a third-party service provider that provides Grass Foundation with development and administrative services in support of the Grass network. So the Grass right now is, as I can see, is trying to be identified as a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, which I appreciate. But there's a level of centralization, and I believe currently it's the centralization or the aspect that is, the business behind this and who's calling the shots is Wind Labs. Again, not very clear, but based on this statement, I believe this is what they're alluding to, is that they are the ones who's basically behind the development and administrative aspect of the project itself. Okay, and we'll talk about this again. It will come up again. No worries. And then we talk about the Grass Foundation. The foundation exists to do what the best is best for the long-term success of Grass. So it's supposed to be a decentralized concept. Its role is to allocate resources to contributors working towards a decentralized, enduring, and collaborative future for Grass ecosystem. It should be, the foundation should be a decentralized autonomous organization with its own foundation capital that they could use. And for me, this is something that we got to talk about in a little bit more detail. Okay, so we're going to continue going on, getting started. Okay, a little bit more details there. We did that. Let's talk about Grass and tokenomics. If we click Grass itself, you see you have the contract address. Great. Grass enables holders to engage with the Grass network as follows: power transactions, right? So typical gas, getting going there. Staking and rewarding. You can get reward for staking. Obviously, a proof of stake. That's good. Network governance. Obviously, because of it's a DAO, you're going to have some sort of voting, and we'll talk about and we'll visit the foundation page in a second. And then network fees and network security. Obviously, for the staking, and the network fees for the power. And why distributed system necessary. Transparency, user ownership, and this is part of the blockchain. We know what the blockchain offers as far as these aspects, and they're just trying to say, hey, this is why we fit best to use a blockchain tech. Okay, so which is cool. Now, the tokenomics. This is interesting. Why? Because it is a fairly newish project. Now, it's not absolutely new, but it is TGE, I think, was October 2024, which means, okay, it's fairly new. And we've been hearing about Grass for a good while. And we can see that usually the first little while, even the first year, could be very difficult for a project, because a lot of the times VCs come in, they offer a lot of capital, and then there's a schedule, there's a vesting schedule. So we're going to talk about the schedule and who gets paid first and how are they getting paid and all of this kind of stuff. But what I want to bring to your attention is that you can see that we have major categories. Okay, major categories. We have the investors. We have contributors. Who are these people? What do they? How are they defined? Okay, very important. Then we go on to ecosystem foundation and ecosystem growth. For me, this is one of my most favorite categories, because this is a category of which you can kind of like put a bit of certainty that they're putting fuel on the fire. Okay, and they're putting a decent amount, 22.8%. But remember this: contributors, investors, who are they? Then we go on to future incentives. What does that mean? Airdrop 1, that's already out. And then router incentives. What does that mean? It's only 3%, but it's not a big deal. But still, what does that mean? And we're going to talk about that more. My more concern is, what is the future incentives? Because when you think about future incentives, it's almost like you're trying to incentivize people for future, giving them an allocation for future, to keep them lingering around, give them an incentive to be here for future growth, right? So I want to know what that means exactly. So we'll take a look at this more. And as you can see, this is the vesting schedule and a visual representation. Guys, as I mentioned, we're about 6 months in, or a little bit over, into the vesting, which means that we're right around here. Okay, soon enough, we'll see a huge unlock or a huge amount of potential flow of tokens entering the market, which, should be a bit concerning here. Why? Because, of course, there's risk of dilution. Now, does the vesting schedule do a good job to keep them at bay? Look, guys, it's going to be very aggressive. You can see that within 40 months, and again, 40 months is long, right? It's a long time. We're probably thinking a few years here, obviously. But what I'm saying is, we start to get very aggressive very quickly within, I would say, the first year, on the 12th month, more or less. Okay, so you can see that spike, and we'll look at this in more detail. I'll have another graph for you to show you a visual representation more. But you can see the contributors and the investors start to go, and the foundation ecosystem, which is fine because that's on our side, and the community, okay, also on our side. But it's these two categories that ramp up significantly on the 12th month, which is in another 6 months, more or less. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Now, community is interesting because we would like to think that it represents us. What does us mean? The average individual that didn't get in so early, right, and take all the risk. Now, early stakeholders take a lot of risk, and they deserve reward, no doubt. But we got to be real about that. Those are going to be the individuals that are likely going to sell when they're in some extreme profit. They're going to use the late longers or the late buyers as exit liquidity. So future incentives, 170 million. Okay, we're talking about a good portion. What was that? Future incentives, 17%. Okay, future incentives will focus on retroactive programs that recognize early contributors. Now, as I read some of these key points, what I want you to do is highlight or keep in mind how many times I'm saying early. Okay, so we're recognizing early contributors and compensating creators who build valuable content or tools for the network. Nothing wrong with, compensating individuals that get in early, but this ultimately means that there's going to be some people that got in early at a good evaluation, at a good price, and if this thing rockets, they're going to want to find exit liquidity. So right now, early stakeholder, right, category. Router rewards, this is fairly simple, but this is part of their tech stack. You need the router, you need a validator. We'll talk about in the architecture section. You'll see a little bit more about this in a moment. But initial pool of rewards has been set aside to incentivize routers and support early infrastructure development. Okay, so early infrastructure development. So people that get in early, once again, giving them a lot of rewards. Obviously, they deserve it. Like I mentioned, this pool will help ensure the routers, which facilitate bandwidth traffic to reduce latency, and keep the network going. Essentially, keep the protocol going, and of course, they deserve that reward. Fine. Airdrop. The first airdrop could also be considered people that are early because they're the first ones in line, is one of the most widely distributed airdrops in history. Is that a good thing for late longers or late buyers? It is an historical event that represents major distribution airdrop. Okay, so think about it, represents a crucial step towards building the first user-owned map of the internet. Interesting. Okay, so we can say that all three categories, although they are community, they are speaking about the early adopters of the community. Okay, so this is the thing. If you're early, congrats, and you're bullish on this project, congrats. You're gonna get well taken care of. However, I don't know how that's going to translate for the rest of us that may not have gotten in super early. Now we're going to talk about the price as far as the price at the current level on exchanges. Now, is that early enough? No, probably not, because we're talking about one before exchange listings and probably just on chain and so on and so forth, and airdrops and all of that. Those are early people, right? Now all of a sudden we're asking ourselves, how early are we? Not that early in that case, right? Foundation and ecosystem growth. This is interesting, of course, because this is where I find a lot of value, because we want the foundation to have a bit of capital, governed by the DAO, and then to have a bit of capital to help the ecosystem grow, to support individuals in operations and marketing and community incentives, upgrades, partnerships, and all that good stuff. So directed by DAO governance. Perfect documentation. I like it's clear. We know what it's for, and I appreciate that. Early investors, another category, okay, that is allocated towards early investors. Again, if we go back here, where's that contributor investors? They didn't put the word early. Okay, remember, use that word early. They're early investors. Okay, early supporters with a 1-year cliff, so they're not going to get anything really until 1 year, and then after that, they're going to get their vesting period. Locked tokens cannot be staked until they are vested. So right now, those tokens don't really have any utility. They're owners, they have them, they're theirs, of course, but they can't do anything with them, and they're going to be able to do a lot with them, including staking, once they're done their cliff. Okay, so we'll talk about the cliff. Remember, the cliff is right here. This is the cliff right here. And then as we go on forward, contributors, core contributors. So people that started up the foundation or the grass project early. Again, people that were here at the ground level, foundational, with 1-year cliff and 3-year vesting, which includes current and future contributors. Locked tokens cannot be staked. So at least we have a vesting schedule to protecting late investors from dilution via this cliff and this vesting, which means that if you buy now, these guys are not threatening you. But at the same time, guys, if you look at it in as its entirety, there's a lot of emphasis on early stakeholders and early investors and early contributors and early people, right? Well, that puts a little bit of the language puts a little bit of many of us, in a late scenario. So are we late? Again, I don't know, guys. I don't know. Okay, so airdrop 1, that's already done. You can see that it already had its thing. Grass staking. This is where you can get rewards for staking, delegating, and being part of the DAO and doing the certain things that a decentralized autonomous organization offers. And that's about it, guys, because this is very typical. If you own tokens, you can vote and propose ideas and so on, which is great, because then you're not relying completely on an individual or an individual organization to call the shots. Now, again, we got to talk about that organization that we talked about. What was it called? I forgot for a moment, but we'll touch base on it again. Now, how to set it up? I'm not going to get into details here because it's 3 easy steps. Get on the site, log in, download the app, connect the app, and then you're pretty much done. You get your gas points, and then you get your airdrops, your certain percentages, and so on. And remember, there's some airdrops. Some people, depending on your geographics, are still waiting for their airdrops, and that's not a good look. But what can we do? That's sometimes the way it is. And then their architecture. Just going to touch upon this a little bit, and I'm not going to use the schematic. I'm just going to quickly talk about that they're different. In order to create this deepen infrastructure that they have various roles and layers. So you have your validator, typical validator identity that a proof of stake project has, Okay, so validators receive, verify, and batch the router's web transactions, and we'll talk about a router, what it is, and it's very common. Like, we know what routers are in our day-to-day life, and pretty much it's the same thing. They then generate ZK proofs to checkpoint session data on chain. So zero knowledge proof. It's a safety mechanism, privacy mechanism. So that's pretty much it. Okay, so router. Grass routers connect Grass nodes to validators. The nodes are basically the software on your computer. Your computer becomes a node via that software that you download. And then the router, what it does is it really reroutes the bandwidth, relaying the bandwidth to the validators and so on, and obviously to the final use case, which is scraping the internet. So there's layers here. You can see that node, your website, your application on your computer, the router, which redistributes the bandwidth that is basically controlled by the node, and then going forward, the validator that validates the transactions and the amount of bandwidth that you're providing in that transaction, and so governed by a public ledger, and so on and so forth. And then you have the ZK, zero knowledge proof processor, submits proofs on the layer 1 blockchain. This action creates a permanent record of every act scraping ever performed on the network. Okay, so if you want to know more, the ledger, edge, you get what I mean? So you can see that they have an entire tech stack to be completely decentralized. And of course, we appreciate that 100%. It's not like it's one computer running from a AWS server somewhere running this whole shebang, right? It's got a whole infrastructure of layers that makes it decentralized. So I appreciate. Okay, so I'm not going to get into more details there. Traffic types, free market, and so on. Full encrypted, partially encrypted. Feel free to check that out, because obviously this has a lot to do with the data that is going to be transmitted through their nodes and so on. And that's about it. Reputation scoring. That might be something. There's a whole mathematical equation to justify your rewards. Because obviously they're going to be judging how well or how lucrative of a contributor you are, and based on this formula, completeness, consistency, timeliness, and availability is how they're going to justify your rewards. Again, your reputation score, higher, better reputation, more rewards. Pretty much. Okay, so that concludes the white paper. It's a pretty clean white paper. It gives you a majority of what you need. I don't see a roadmap anywhere. I don't see anything about the team. And we'll talk about that. Okay, we'll get there. Now, you can discover more. Again, they got a great learn section here on their website for a little bit more. You got to admit, their marketing and their style and their whole art and so on, their whole theme is really, really nice, including the foundation webpage. As you can see, very, very nice. Check availability if this is something that you can do in your geographic location. And then you can see there's docs, blogs, stats, and you can stake and obviously become part of the Grass Foundation, where you could decentralize the overall where they try to decentralize the identity of Grass. Now, speaking of the identity, right, we know that there's this wind labs that's all over it. Now we start to question, what is their main objective or their main role into this? It's not very clear to me. But then again, we start to look at, token allocation. We start to look at, we have this, we have the token Grass on SoulScan, and we start to look at the holders, and we can see it's not bad. We do have some major wallets here. Obviously, this is the Grass multi-sig, multi-sig wallets, multiple signature wallets. It requires many individuals to sign the transaction before it can actually be executed. Okay, so and you can see Bybit and a few, and I'm imagining that a lot of these are going to be exchange liquidity as well. It would be nice to have these defined as they have the Bybit hot wallet also defined, but unfortunately they do not. Very unfortunate. So again, I'm not sure. It's 7%, 7%, 7%. It's equal batches. I don't appreciate it. I don't like those batch-like looking things, but I can imagine that they're valid. And again, visual. Let's visualize on SoulScan. You can see very distributed, very nice. There's a few larger ones, Grass multi-sig, and a few others, as you can see. But for the most part, we're doing pretty good as far as distributed token distribution. Okay, now I'm going to quickly show you. I'm going to quickly get into the team and so on. But before we do that, this website right here, Crypto Rank, gives you a good indication of the next unlocks and how they are going to play out. As you can see, we're still into these future incentives as being unlocked within the 3 years, slow and steadily. Airdrop 1 was already unlocked, and we're still unlocking the router rewards, which is only 3%. This is where things get hectic, because we see a lot more unlocking happening here. And whether it be on a cliff, as you can see, we have the 1 year cliff, 1 year cliff, 1 year cliff. Regardless, this is where things start to get hectic, because not only do you have the beginning of these unlocks, but you still have these ones that are still continuing, which means that we are hoping that by the time these get on these cliffs, actually come to fruition, that we are done and we're in a bear market. Okay, because we are at the level of which we should see a very parabolic run in this space. And if we do, great. But and obviously we're expecting a lot of good gains, including for projects like Grass. But then once we hit these tops, I want to ask you this question: who is going to be taking profits once we hit these tops? Right? It's going to be early investors. And remember what I said about, the key term early. There's a lot of early identities out there within the tokenomics that are going to have early rewards. And I usually, keep this in mind. Projects that are new are you going to get the biggest hits on their first bear market because of all the tokens that get unlocked. And Grass, despite the fundamentals of what you think about it, it doesn't matter. We've seen great projects come back all the way down, pretty much 1-to-1 in the bear market. Why? Because the reality is a lot of tokens got emitted during its first cycle. And its first cycle is right now, as you can see, if these guys start getting their unlocks, and by, the end of the year, first quarter, we start to see a bear market, who's going to be taking profit, guys? I'm going to tell you this: it's going to be everybody, because the reality is the majority of the people that are currently in Grass are early, like I mentioned before. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, if we quickly go into what the team is all about, and we start to see the team itself, we have one individual that is semi-doxed, pretty doxed, I would say. He's on socials. Andre, I'm assuming that's how we pronounce his name, but Andre's a founder, CEO. He's semi-doxed. He's on socials. He has many, many AMAs and interviews and podcasts. He's very out there on the socials, which I appreciate and we should appreciate. So we'll take a look a little bit about that. And then you can see he has his LinkedIn page, but unfortunately not much listed. So semi-docs, like, okay, maybe, what is his background? What is he about? I know he's a mathematician, and that's great. Physicist, he's into physics and all of that. But where's his blockchain experience? He could have a lot. He could be totally intertwined to this space, but I don't see it here. And that's difficult. Now, we could hear him speak. He could be a great speaker. He could have a lot of knowledge and so on. But then we start to look at this right here. And you can see this is very intertwined with the Grass ecosystem. And we've talked about this before, that, I'm curious, making public web data accessible for AI. And this is the back end of who is governing, or who is consulting, let's say, or part of its administration for Grass. And there's not a lot of information either about this. So again, like if we go to this page right here on the right, Grass.io, and we start to look at, its LinkedIn page, you can see that, there's not much happening here. We got a few posts, and then we go to people. Again, you got some, but there's not much, not much happening here. I don't know who's the team. Now, is it enough for the founder to be the team? One individual? For me personally, it's not enough. Yeah, the founders could be great, which we have very limited information about, but I would like to know who's exactly behind it. Now, a lot of projects, because they are backed by a DAO, or they're behind a DAO, they believe that they don't need to have any doxing whatsoever. That for me is a little bit invalid, because this project is so new. You need to know who's calling shots in the background, right? And that's a valid point, right? It's not completely decentralized, even if it is behind the DAO. So this is the truth. So, he could be a great guy. I did listen to some of his speeches and his AMAs and his podcasts. Brilliant individual, very knowledgeable, great leader and all of that. But more formal information about, the team itself and everybody, who's the full stack developer, who's the blockchain developer, who's behind it. I would like to know. Wouldn't it be nice? Obviously, it would help conviction. Now, again, you dig around a little bit more. Like I mentioned, there's lots of videos out there about Andre, speaking about his education. You can see mathematics, statistics, bachelor degree in engineering, physics. Great thing, great opportunities for us to be a part of a team with an individual like this. But it's at one individual, not a team at the current moment. So again, and is this the team? Again, Win Labs, where's the link? Contact us. There's nothing here. Guys, there's nothing here for us to kind of figure out who's the back end of Grass, like who's part of this. I'm trying to click. There's nothing here, guys, at all. Bit of an issue with regards to identity, right? Like, who's the team? Now, again, we can get into socials. We see Andre, 15,000 followers, pretty good. He's all about the grass. We're all about the grass. We love the grass. But again, who's the team? Maybe some of these are docs, maybe not. Again, I'm not here to be a private investigator, so it would be nice for the team to offer some information about their main milestones, their accomplishments, their education, their connections. It's a great thing, right, for a community to rally up a community. I think their socials are great. You can see Grass has almost over 500,000 followers. Their marketing is on point. Beautiful marketing, great colors, great style, great communication. They're able to rally up a crowd. I think their choice of name is interesting, and especially for the demographics and everything, quite interesting altogether, no doubt. But then, what about the roadmap? Where are they going with things? We're relying on word of mouth. We're relying on, the AMAs and the podcasts. Well, I was able to get my hands on this, and I don't even know when it's dated or, where it came from or anything. I try my best to find its original source, but this is what's lingering around the internet and on Discord. More distribution mechanisms for retail, customer data center infrastructure, Grass storage network. I think that's interesting. Multimodal search. I'm not even sure what that is. Live context retrieval. Again, guys, if you don't have a roadmap, the people that are following you and that are behind you don't know where you're going. Now, if you expect them to, follow you blindly, it's very difficult. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be people doing that. I'm sure there will be. But the reality is, don't you think you'll get a stronger reaction if you just said, look, by this quarter, we want to achieve this, and that, and we define this and that by this, right? And then all of a sudden you have a bit of a definition of where they are going to be allocating capital in the next little while. Right? What, not just meaning capital as far as financial, but meaning human capital. And where's the talent? Who are these human capital? Who's the talent behind the team? Who's the developer? Did they come from another team that developed? Maybe they're part of Solana or who knows, right? So this is the thing here, guys. When there's unknown and uncertainty, there's a little bit of doubt, and then that's why you kind of like FUD it a little bit, because it's like, I wish I would have known more. I wish I could know more so I can be more behind it a little bit with more strength. That's about it, guys. Like, ultimately, the project is quite interesting. It's just that we got to be real about the data that is provided here by the team. And overall, guys, it's not bad. It's just, we don't know where they're going with things and who is behind and pushing this roadmap to the next level. All right, guys, let's get right into some, review. As you guys know, I do give you guys a summary of the project, and I put this infographic on social so you can take a look at it and download it and have it there as a cheat sheet going forward. Now, I'm just going to tell you this: as of an hour ago, the market has been doing very well. We've been climbing up and pumping. So that means that some of these numbers are going to be off a little bit, guys. I did my best to try to keep it current, but we're getting a bit of volatility in the last hour. So bear with me, okay? So let's quickly go over, some of the details behind its ecosystem. There's a DAO, which you guys know I appreciate. I like when you give ownership to the token holders. Standalone project developed by Wind Labs. Okay, so this is where we have to understand that its ecosystem is on its own. There's not much happening there with regards to external partnerships that are basically adding or anything like that. Its ecosystem is very standalone, which I appreciate, which is fine. A closed ecosystem. And again, this Wind Labs comes up again because they are the ones that started it up and developed it, and the team behind it comes from there. And again, I don't know where that comes, much details about Win Labs. Of course, this is not a deep dive on them. Utility rewards. Obviously, rewards because you're getting rewarded via sharing your internet bandwidth, and staking obviously as well. And then security for the staking and rewards for staking. So you're using the token to secure the network, and in addition, you're going to get rewarded. So obviously, that's one of its core utilities, and then the governance, being able to vote on the DAO itself. So a good utility for a project, very typical, and it hits all the marks. And then going forward, we can see that the roadmap, a grass storage network, live context retrieval, these are things that were on that roadmap that I was able to find with no date and no nothing. But then again, if you start reading their socials and start listening to some of their videos, they do, the founder does talk about where their vision is at. Now, because of that, I'm like, okay, at least he's there, putting his face forward and speaking about his vision, which is great. Is it the end all be all? Do we need formal documentation? Do we need to have it, on paper? It would be ideal, guys. This is the reality. We got to hold these teams and these organizations to high standards, because if they're going to be considered legitimate investment opportunities that are going to be taken mainstream, we need documented information. Why? Because that's accountability, right? And there's going to be a legal framework one day to hold these companies accountable for what they promise and what they say and all of this kind of stuff. And the quicker we become a more diligent in our expectations for them to document information, the better it is for the space in general. So I'm not saying anything other than this. They are making a good claims of where they're going, and I like what they're saying. However, it's not formally documented, and I couldn't find it anywhere on their white papers, on their Gitbook, or on their website. That's unfortunate. And then obviously not knowing who the team is as a whole, knowing the founder is great. Semi-docs, because we don't know his background primarily, like what kind of blockchain experience does he have within the crypto space, Web3 space. You can be a mathematician and a physicist or whatever it is with regards to your education, but what blockchain experience do you have? What makes you a good leader for the blockchain space? Now, you can say it on a podcast and again, all over socials, but having it properly documented, at least on LinkedIn, what does it take? Put it on LinkedIn so we can verify your team and that it's a solid team. It would make us a lot more, let's say, willing to get more involved into the grass value proposition. That's how I look at it. Anyways, socials on point. On point, really nice. I appreciate everything, their effort, good amount of followers, active Discord. Their announcement, their Telegram is announcement only. CEO has done many interviews, AMAs, and podcasts, so I appreciate that. Face-to-face interaction is definitely valuable, 100% from a marketing perspective and a social perspective. Very, very, but it shouldn't compensate or be basically replace, the doxing of the founder and the roadmap and all of that. But from a marketing perspective, on point. Tokenomics, little bit of issues here with regards to tokenomics, because I see a lot of emphasis on early contributors, which bothers me a lot, because that means that the rest of us don't have an opportunity here. So the emphasis on early is not good for people that are coming in 6 months to a year later. So where do we fit into the space, right? So yes, they deserve a reward, no doubt. But are we going to be willing to become their exit liquidity? That, for me, is the biggest issue when we talk about tokenomics. So vesting to ensure tokens enter circulation gradually. We're talking about the cliff, and we're talking about the vesting schedule with that slow release. 1 year cliff, of course, for the investors and contributors, but the majority of the tokens are allocated to early stakeholders generally. Stakeholders in general. Anybody that is early is getting a lot of benefit here. And it's great, no doubt, but like I mentioned, where do we fit in? So I'm going to kind of like keep that there. Relationships, Solana Mobile, of course, it's based on Solana. It's on the Solana blockchain. So that's an interesting thing. If the Saga phone does well and it becomes mass adopted, imagine, contributing data, if this is something that you opt in for, via mobile, and then obviously being rewarded could be a good one. And the alignment with Lab AI, an LLM, a language learning model, allows this relationship basically to flourish, given the fact that Grass is collecting information to train LLMs. So this relationship is probably very vital for a Grass. So I appreciate that one. 8 out of 10. I think that's a good start with good relationships. There could be more going forward, and I would like to see a little bit more integration, especially with their DeepIn protocol, and maybe a little bit more with regards to AI, maybe further going into agents, not just language learning models. Okay, so because LLMs in general are not, they're not old, but I'm just saying this is like yesterday's news with regards to AI. Okay, let's be real. And then exchanges, BitGet, Bybit, and so many more. We got so many, good exchanges except Binance and Coinbase. So this is where we're at right now. We're waiting for a listing on Binance. We're waiting for a listing on Coinbase. Does that happen? Does it? The reality is that sometimes, the aggregators like CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap don't even list them as being listed on Binance and Coinbase. They could already be on their way. The reality is guys, is that we're not getting the heavyweights involved just yet, or promoting it. So at this case, we're waiting patiently to see a proper exchange listing on one of these heavyweights, so we can get a pump based on that. Now, overall, guys, as you see, when we look at these, infographics that I produce, we try to keep it as accurate as possible. And you can see as of today, it's right around the $2, because I know we've been pumping, we've been fluctuating a little bit here, but around $2. Market cap is still small. It's not that big, half a billion dollars when you're talking about, a big project like this. We're pretty much doing pretty good with regards to supply, 27% in circulation. It's new, guys. It's only 27% in circulation, and the max is a billion. So, we have a little bit more tokens to enter. They're going to come in slowly via the vesting schedule. The fully diluted market cap, $2 billion. Guys, this is new, so we're going to expect that the tokenomics are not going to be the greatest, and that we're going to see tokens entering circulation in the next coming years. Okay, so let's kind of put that on hold, because it is what it is based on its age, right? And the fact is that we're waiting for tokens to enter the market. You can't deny that. Now, let's keep on going over it. We'll talk about some of these other little details here with regards to my final verdict. Some of it will be a bit repetition, but I'll get into a little bit more detail, like DeepIn, AI, Solana. This is all part of its narrative, or part of its, overall identity. TGE for Grass occurred October 28th, 2024, right around that area. 6 months into vesting, so it's fairly early. We're getting tokens out there. 22.8% for the foundation and the ecosystem, 30% for early community members, and 47% to early investors and contributors. This early business is too much for the average individual to endure, in my opinion. So I'm a little bit worried there about these early stuff, but I like the ecosystem foundation, let's say, contribution that is going to ensure that the ecosystem grows and Grass gets well funded for business operations. And then, speaking of that, we have this Wind Labs supporting the Grass network. What does that mean? What's their true involvement? Or is the CEO founder of Grass also part and CEO founder of Wind Labs? This is where the identities start to get very blurred, and this is where things kind of get a little bit gray and ugly. So I'm questioning a lot of this relationship. No formal roadmap documented with timeframes at all, and I kind of like those. Doesn't have to be down to the minute, the day, or the month, or anything like that, but at least quarterly. At least let us know where you're going with things within the next few months. Can concept attract mass adoption? Let's talk about this for a second, guys. Because this is what I had to think about long and hard. Because the reality is, although the idea is great, and for the average individual that wants to level off the playing field in the sense that, okay, you're paying for your internet, it might be expensive, and you might say, you know what, I might as well put it to work and earn. Or maybe it's not expensive, but you have access to unlimited internet, and you might say, you know what, I want to take advantage of this opportunity that I have that has unlimited internet and earn. Okay, is this something that majority of people might want to get involved with? Now, of course, the security issue, the whole idea of having an app or running in the background of your computer. Nowadays, we understand the value of our personal information, the data that we have, regardless of what they say regarding, safety. our internet, our computers have become more valuable over time, given that our digital assets have also become more valuable over time. So just the idea, the concept of putting our computers, our devices, into harm's way, even if it's a small amount of a percent, 1% harm's way, for me personally, is too much. And I don't know if you share the same sentiment or not, but I would not want to even put my home network, my office network, into harm's way by putting any type of application that is using my bandwidth. You have to understand, has access to my IP address. This is something that I do not appreciate. Now, again, that's a personal thing. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Let me know if you actually went through their entire security measures, in a full depth analysis, deep dive on security. But I'm not going to do that because the average investor, the retail investor, is not going to do that either. And from a layman's perspective, can this attract everybody? I think that it's going to attract a good amount of people that want to earn some passive income, fine, or are speculating on earning passive income, but is actually going to be where every computer on the planet, or the majority of them, are going to, take this on. Guys, I'm on the fence about that. Is the reward worth the effort? Guys, like, I did do a bit of numbers. I crunched a bit of numbers. I used some, data that was collected by some of the community members that went through grass and are, earning through grass. And it's a few dollars a day, at its current evaluation. I think that a lot of people that are potentially doing this, contributing their bandwidth, is that they're more interested in the airdrop itself, in the sense that they're expecting that these tokens are going to fly for the bull run rather than a long-term multi-cycle investment. And if that's the case, I understand. You're trying to mine or gather tokens and rewards for the pump for a massive bull run or altcoin season. And that's their mindset as an early investor, right? That's the reality. Okay, so it's a tough call, guys. It's a tough call because the effort to keep your computer on might be something that a lot of people are, contemplating on. So grass, let's talk about what my evaluation is. Let's say it gets to a $3 billion market cap. It's possible, guys. Their marketing is good. Their fundamentals are good. Lots of community behind it. Lots of influencers talking about it in the last bit. And of course, I don't follow influencers. I really don't care what people say. But when I look at a project that has some good aspects, I want an allocation. So I can see that, it could potentially go to $10, easy 5x, not a problem. Why not? Based on the fundamentals. And for this reason, I do hold some because I'm expecting upside potential. And I do give it a rating out of 8 out of 10. But there's no way in my mind that I am going to think that I'm going to be holding this multi-cycle. Okay, if we see an altcoin season where we see Bitcoin hitting some great levels, the total market cap of this space hit about $6 trillion, $5 trillion and above, guys, I am going to be taking profit like it's hot on this project. Not because I dislike it, because I understand what it's going to spell out during a bear market. We're going to see lots of dilution because people are going to be taking profits, and we do not want to become exit liquidity despite what you feel fundamentally about the project, right? This is a very important lesson for a lot of people out there that are coming in, loving the ideas that you read about, but then ultimately understanding that tokenomics will go against you because that's just the nature of the game. Okay, so that's that. Now, grass, interesting idea. The question is, are we going to get more pumps to the upside? I know you're here to talk about charts as well. So let's begin. Let's take a look at what's going on here with the grass chart. Grass chart broke out. And as I told you in the past, I was buying into this level. And we definitely broke out. And we're continuing to the upside in the next little while. But the question is, how much higher can we go here before we get a proper retracement so that you can get in at another level at a position of strength? Let's take a look at this in a little bit more detail. Now, I'm going to be real with you guys. As we see markets pump right now, grass is up 15% for the day. We have a lot of other projects doing very, very well. We have Bitcoin showing strength. We have, even Ethereum showing a lot of strength today. Really, really good. Awesome. We've been preparing for this for a long period of time. The problem is that also even in an aggressive market, people lose money, and it's very unfortunate. Why? And it's because they get in at the wrong time. Now, all week long, pretty much, we've been fairly sideways on this project. We broke out and then we went sideways for a few days. And as you can see, we had a nice bottom, nice rounded bottom, a good accumulation level. This was your opportunity to speculate, to say, okay, maybe we're going to get a bounce. But I know a lot of us are worried about what Bitcoin is doing, because Bitcoin is at all-time highs pretty much, almost there. And Bitcoin at the end of the day could go into a sideways retracement. In fact, it could even come down for a bit of a dip. And then what is going to happen to the altcoins? Could grass dip? 100% grass could dip. You're not going to deny the fact that if Bitcoin retraces or gets a bit of bearish price action in the next little while, that grass is going to continue running forever. It's not going to happen, guys. We'll see a dip in the total market cap. We've gotten some great responses in the last little while. So I understand where, newcomers coming in are worried. Should I buy? Should I just wait? Well, guess what, guys? You run the risk of not, having an allocation if we do fly to previous highs in price discovery. $10 could be the target. You run the risk. So how are you going to eliminate the risk of, missing out, right? That FOMO is there. I get it. Well, guys, the best thing to do is if you're not taking risks at bottoms, right? Especially where you start to see consolidations and good higher lows and good volume, point of control, good levels of risk right into here where I started buying. Well, then you're going to have to buy the dip at every opportunity and DCA into those red days on lower time frames. Now, I'm going to tell you this, even on the 4 hour, if you classify this as a slightly lower time frames, it's not like we got a momentum shift or a reset on momentum. Momentum is still overbought. Momentum is still looking strong here for the chart for grass. So I understand if you look at the momentum oscillator right here. By the way, guys, if you want to know more about this oscillator, I got links in the description. And you can see that ultimately, it's basically overbought. It left overbought. It's hanging around here in the chop zone. Could it go overbought again? I can see potential divergence happening. Higher high on the price action and momentum not making a higher high. As volatility, the orange line gets overbought. Maybe the purple line won't go for another move to the upside, and we'll get a reset on the 4 hour. This is where things get hectic out here. Okay, very hectic, because a lot of people might be FOMOing into this pump, thinking that we're going to continue rocketing off of this bottom, which is very valid. But what about if we dip? If you get onto a 50x long here, you're going to get wrecked. This is the reality. This is what happens. This is how a lot of people even lose money in bull runs, is because they take too much risk at the wrong time. The time to take risk was here, and your invalidation was below those bottoms, and then you could have taken a little bit more leverage or a bigger position size. At the current moment, you don't know what's going to happen if literally we do make that higher high. Then all of a sudden we connect these two tops and we get divergence on the volume, and we get divergence on the RSIs, momentum oscillators, whatever oscillator you use to track the markets. Right now we got the trend oscillator looking pretty good. EMA is facing up, green histogram bars to the upside. This looks great. But then again, if Bitcoin takes its dip, and when it does take its dip, what's going to happen to grass? But in the meantime, you want an allocation, right? You want to have some exposure to it just in case this thing rockets. Guys, the only thing you could do in a bull run is DCA on dips. Whatever dips you get, just buy a little bit at a time. Okay, so let's talk about that. Like I said, guys, I'm not trusting this price action right now to get into fresh longs. It does look great. It does look great. But with the potential divergence looming, not confirmed, I'm not going to get all in. What I would do is get in with maybe no more than 30% right here. Because if it dips, you want to have a good amount of capital to buy in. If it goes higher, we'll get a retracement again, and you'll buy at a higher price. I get it. And you're going to probably say, but Mike, why do I want to buy a higher price? Because you want peace of mind. You don't want to be buying the top. You want to buy, even if it is a lower, a dip, and it is higher than the current price, it's okay. And the reason why I say that is because you are getting a confirmation. So let's say we go up, and then we come down, and then you buy right into here. Okay, let's make this example a little bit better. Let's say we go up, and then we come down, right? And then you buy right into here, more or less. Okay, you're probably saying, Mike, but why would I buy here instead of buying right here? Well, because you know that you've dipped. You'll know that oscillators have reset. You'll see a little bit of fear in the market. You'll get a nice structure. You put a stop loss right underneath here. And then you run. That's the reason why, because you can protect yourself. You can get defensive. You could have proper risk management. You're a trader, right? You're not here to gamble. If you buy right now, you have to be prepared that, again, we could make that higher high. We could make a double top. You're buying the top. You're buying into resistance. And we could get a divergence here on lower time frames. Let's go on to the 1 hour. Nice, beautiful rounded bottom, guys. You can't deny it. A break of this tops, we go extend to the upside. We're getting overbought on the 1 hour. It looks beautiful, but you're buying into the previous high. This is the resistance. What about if this becomes a flag right here at the tail end and it starts to look like a cup and handle? Well, that's awesome. We can flag. Oh, flags are not perfect. We can retrace even here, boom, and then start moving to the upside. Of course, and then if you get into too much leverage right here because you think we're going to the moon, are you going to be able to withstand any dips? Maybe all the way down to about $2. Again, that would be a great buy opportunity. Maybe confirmation low on lower time frames on the 1 hour. So what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter the time frame that you trade. Just wait for it to pull back and buy into the support on the pullback rather than buying into the resistance on the rally. And right now, that's what's happening right now. So it's very difficult because getting into a fresh long is going to put you not from a position of strength. It's going to be a position of weakness. Now, you might say, but Mike, we have a lot of room to grow here. We do. We have a lot of, we're at bottom still. But then you have to have a big picture perspective. You have to have this mindset that you have to be able to endure even a small correction, even down to maybe about $1.70 before it continues to the upside and then upwards. And you'll be in the red for a little while. Could your position handle that? If you get in with a 50x or 100x long, absolutely not. You'll get wrecked. So you have to be real about what you're getting into at the current moment. Spot bags are going to be the best because there's no liquidation. If you get in right now, potentially on this breakout, it's a breakout trade. We could get rejected, come down to about $1.75. You're down 20%. The most this position can handle is potentially 5x maximum, and then you're liquidated. If it comes down to real liquidity and falls through this level, at point of control, and comes to this volume gap right here, you're going to get wrecked. You're going to get liquidated. You're down 35% and more if it comes down to these bottoms, right? That's the reality. So what kind of leverage are you going to use here? I would use none. I would be accumulating spot until we get a proper retracement, even if it's this one at a higher level. Who cares? Here, you can get in with bigger leverage and make up for this rally to the upside with safety and with a strategy that puts you in a position of strength, not weakness. Okay, guys? So grass is looking good. It's just that right now, as a breakout or as it's moving up, it's very dangerous. Keep it in mind. All right, guys, if I've offered you any value in this video, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out the algorithm. If you want to contribute to the next deep dive by voting on which project I cover, join the Discord. It's absolutely free. There's a section there where you can request deep dives and vote on the next deep dive that I release every single week. In addition to that, I got lots of links in the description, including links to my previous deep dives. I have 100 deep dives on various projects out there in this space that we need to speculate on. And of course, that's where they're at, guys, right on the channel. Take care, guys. See you tonight, 8 p.m. EST, where we talk about crypto news and price action. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.